Alright guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to get clinical and patient exposure for medical school. For those of you who don't know, one of the things that you do need for medical school is patient exposure hours, doing something where you're interacting with the patient just so that you can kind of know what the medical field is about and have some experience when it comes to that. So we're just going to talk about a few different ways that you can get that patient exposure on your belt and get that on your resume. Alright, now the first thing that you can do to get patient exposure for medical school is to become an EMT or paramedic. I'd suggest just EMT, that's usually good enough. Paramedic, it takes a couple extra years and it's a lot more money, and it's just not necessary if you want to go into medical school. If you're already a paramedic, that's great, that's cool, and you want to apply to medical school, go for it. I'm not saying that being a paramedic will hurt your application. It's just you don't have to go that extreme with patient exposure if you just want to be a doctor and if your goal is medical school in the end. Becoming an EMT is actually a great option for patient exposure. It's actually what I did and I'm currently doing, and I love it. It's amazing. So an EMT, those are emergency medical technicians. They're just the ones who drive the ambulance. Usually what they'll do is drive, fuel it, make sure that everything's ready on the ambulance to go. Usually you'll work with a paramedic or another EMT or an AEMT, which is just advanced EMT. From a medical standpoint, an EMT does and can interact with patients. They are just limited on what they're allowed to do. Their scope of practice is a little bit less than, let's say, an AEMT or a paramedic, but they still are allowed to do a few different things. So some of the few things that EMTs can do from the medical perspective are things like splinting, CPR. They can assist in giving albuterol, assist in giving glucose to a diabetic patient. They can take vitals, and they probably will be the one who takes vitals while the paramedic assesses the patient. If it is just two EMTs on the scene, they are allowed to do the primary assessment as well. We're actually trained and have to take skills tests on primary assessments and trauma assessments. EMTs do also transport patients from one place to another, whether that's between hospitals or from a nursing home to the hospital. In my opinion, out of all the things that you can do for patient exposure, becoming an EMT is the best. That is just my opinion. Some people might have different opinions. Now, I have this opinion because becoming an EMT is the most patient exposure and patient interaction that you can have as a pre-med. Out of all the different things that you can do, CNA, Scribe, which we'll go over those two as well later on in the video. As an EMT, you can do the most for the patient and interacting with the patient. So there's a few different places that you can go to get your EMT license. It's usually a course, about 4 to 6 month long course. You can do it at a school, like a college, or you can do it at a fire department. I did mine at a fire department. It was amazing. I loved it. It was only 4 months. I was going to do mine originally at a college, and it would have been 6 months. It was 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 4 hours a day. So we had it in class and online. So we had to do book work for 4 hours a day on the days that we weren't in class, and then on the days that we were in class, it was just a 4 hour long class. Once you do graduate EMT school, you do have to go take the NREMT, which is the National Registry for EMTs. It's for them to get certified, and then from there you go get a job, and then you can get licensed in your state. On top of taking the written test for the NREMT, you also have to take certain skills tests like spinal immobilization, medical assessment, trauma assessment, CPR certification, and then there's just a few others. So for pricing for EMT school, mine was actually $1,200. I've heard of some EMT schools that are only $900, some are $1,500. It really depends, but it's usually around the $1,000 mark. $1,000 to $1,200 is what I found as the average. And if you get on the ambulance and you find out that you love being an EMT and you want to do that instead, their average salary in the United States is around $24,000 to $36,000 a year. It does obviously depend on what state you live in. Some states make more than others, but on average, that's what it is in the United States. All right, guys, the next opportunity that we're going to talk about for patient exposure for pre-meds is a CNA or a certified nurse assistant. To become a CNA, it's a lot easier than becoming an EMT. It's usually only a 4-week course for the most part, and these courses are all over the place. You can just Google CNA course and you can find one right there in your city and go take it, and in a month you can be certified. Now, for the most part, what CNAs do is they assist people with living. So whether that's assist them with eating, assist them with going to the bathroom, they assist them with bathing, so they'll shower them. And these can be any kind of people with special needs, older people. A lot of times CNAs will work in a nursing home and just take care of the elderly. They do also take vital signs for patients, so they can do that when it comes to the medical side of interacting with a patient. they will take the vital signs, as well as they'll just help if there's a doctor or a nurse around. They'll just help them with anything they need. They're just kind of their assistants on top of everything else. In my opinion, this is the second best thing that you can do for patient exposure if you're a pre-med. If you don't want to go through EMT school and spend the time to get certified as an EMT, a CNA is definitely a great option. It's not the best option in my opinion, simply just because you don't have as much medical exposure to your patients. So yeah, you can wipe their butt and give them showers and things, but you just can't do as much as an EMT can when it comes to the medical field. It is still a great option, and if you don't want to take the time to become an EMT, a CNA is definitely still a great option. It's just not as much patient exposure. So to become a fully registered CNA in the United States, it is about $1,300, so just a little bit more than an EMT. And they average about $32,000 a year in the United States, so about the same amount of money as an EMT. Okay guys, the next opportunity that I have for your patient exposure hours to get those knocked out is to become a medical scribe. This is definitely a popular option in the medical community. I know a couple of my friends do it, and for good reason too. You can actually become a medical scribe, start from scratch, and be all done and certified within a week. Basically, the way it works is you just have to go take the national test and then you're certified, but you're not required to take a course or required to pass. Now guys, I would recommend you go take a course before you go take the test, because the test for becoming a medical scribe is $165. And if you're just going to go throw $165 at a test, but you've never experienced anything when it comes to being a medical scribe, that's not very smart. So just go, you can go find these courses online. Depending on what you want to be a medical scribe for, whether that's a primary care doctor or emergency physician, it'll be different courses and different price ranges for each of those courses. But like I said before, it's really nice because the pace really is up to you. You can start on Monday, get the course, start studying the course every day, and then on Friday be finished with the course and then take the exam and pass it. Then you can go get a job as a medical scribe within a week, within 2 weeks. It is a lot quicker than becoming a CNA or an EMT, and it is a lot cheaper as well. The courses usually tend to be around $250 a course, and then the test is only $165, so a lot cheaper than $1,200 or $1,300. So I'm just going to go over really quick what exactly is a medical scribe. So basically it's just someone who documents and writes down interactions between doctors and their patients. They can do some other things like setting up consults or putting things into a computer, but for the most part it's just doing great documentation and helping the doctors and the hospitals be more efficient in their documentation. Now out of this list, this is my least favorite option for patient exposure. It's great if you don't have much time and don't have much money, then this is definitely a great option for you, and it will get the job done for medical school. But it is my least favorite option just because there's not really any medical patient exposure when it comes to a medical standpoint. You don't really take vitals, you don't really do CPR, or you can't do any of those things. You do still interact with patients to an extent, but it is not as much as an EMT or a CNA. So for that reason, it is my least favorite option. But like I said before, it is still a really good option if you're tight on cash or tight on time and you just don't have very many options when it comes to taking EMT school or CNA. And guys, one last thing, the average salary for a medical scribe in the United States is around $20,000 a year. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that video. These are just 3 options that I went over for patient exposure hours if you're a pre-med. Obviously there are other options that you can do. They are a little bit less common, but if none of these 3 options sounded good to you, you can always look up different options. There are a few little ones here and there. Hopefully that video was helpful. If you enjoyed it at all, feel free to hit the like button or subscribe. It does help out the channel a ton. And if you just want to follow me through my medical journey, feel free to subscribe. But see you next week.